Okay. So yeah, if you miss a week or you want to, you're just dying to get back into the class, all of the recordings from our synchronous weeks will be right here. So if you missed week 1, you're welcome to come in here and watch the video. And I will have week 3, week 5, and week 7 in here as those weeks progress. Okay, so we are week 3. Oh, one other thing I wanted to show you real quick that I know that we talked about last time and likely you're already aware of, but as we go through your assignments and things will be showing up here in the upcoming events calendar. So if you're not sure, I don't have everything showing up over here because I am rolling them out from week to week. But there's nothing coming up that you need to be working on now, except for the Making Your Learning Public artifact, and we will talk a little bit more about that. But this is what's coming up for week 3 and week 4. Okay, so now I'm going to try to decide if I want to go into, no, I don't want to go into student mode yet. All right, week 3. I'm really excited to be back with you guys. It's been fun being able to listen to your conversations, read your journals, go through your UDL modules. I've really been enjoying that. And getting a good sense of who you are as students, and I think, yeah, so far so great. It's been you guys have been doing really well. All right, so our second synchronous week is week 3. One thing to note is that I will be reaching out with details about student teaching later on this week. There's a lot of information, and I know that not all of you are doing student teaching, so I'm just going to take a brief minute just to note that there's going to be a lot of information for those of you who are about to start your student teaching. There's going to be a lot of information that's going to be coming your way, and some of it we need to have addressed and taken care of before your student teaching placement officially starts. So as you see things coming through, it'll be in the email and it'll be in the 568 Brightspace site. But just know that things are going to be coming out so that we can hit the ground running when student teaching starts, so that we're not like experiencing a big lag and then we realize like, oh, you should have done something, or I needed to do something on my end. So that's just a PSA. Watch out for those details. They'll come in through your email, and there will be things in Brightspace as well. Okay, but this week for UDL and Co teaching, you are in synchronous class with me right now. I'm going to ask you to provide me feedback on weeks 1 and 2, what's worked and what hasn't. We are going to do an exercise called the UDL barbecue, and then talk some about specially designed instruction and co-teaching, thinking about those chapters that you had out of the Apple book to read for tonight. And then I'm going to ask that you submit a weekly reflection journal. So this week we'll start using the rubric, and we'll go through that here in a little while. Okay, any questions about what we're going to do this week? Okay. So here is our course alignment. So we're going to do things with our course objectives that have to do with co-teaching and UDL. So we're going to be working with some of this content from Dr. Friend, who also wrote the book that has the big apples on it. I know that some of you don't already have that, and so I'm going to be providing you the text that you need along the way for whatever reason with the bookstore. So I don't know why it takes so long or is so hard to get that to happen, but okay, so we'll do some with co-teaching, and then we'll also do some with UDL, with the UDL barbecue activity. And then I will also be taking a look at your reflection journals when you submit them by Sunday. So that's kind of what we're going to do today. Gives you a bit of the lay of the land. Here is the UDL this week table. Because we're going to be doing the reflection journal in a way that we'll be able to evaluate it using the rubric and those sorts of things, it will be important that you spend some time taking a look at this UDL this week table. Again, it's something that you're able to read through on your own, so I'm not going to read it to you, but this just captures my thinking and the intentionality around what I'm asking you to do. So if you ever feel like it's busy work or you're like, why are we doing what we're doing? This is a great place to come each time, this UDL this week table, in order to understand kind of why I am, using some different things that I'm using and how they align with the UDL framework. All right. Well, the way that we'll start these kinds of discussions out is that I'll share some things that I've noticed getting into your assignment and watching your videos and things, and then I'll share what I've noticed, and then I'm going to ask for you to provide me feedbacks on week 1 and 2. So things that I noticed already is that you guys are a great group, and you're totally on top of it. And so I really appreciate everyone's flexibility in meeting with your groups, even individuals who weren't really sure exactly, had a bit of a bumpy start perhaps to the semester. You jumped right in, met with your collaboration groups, and I really appreciate that. So as I was reading your reflection journals, there were a few things that that came up. But one of the themes that I can share with you is that many of you are cautiously optimistic about the course in this semester. Some of you shared, not like overtly, but just that maybe professors in the past had done some things that maybe have eroded your trust in professors. And so hopefully I can earn some of that back this class. But I appreciate the optimism that was coming through in your journals, even if some of it is a little apprehensive, not really knowing kind of, how it's all going to play out. Some of you were commenting on the synchronous, asynchronous schedule, or the synchronous and then the collaboration group weeks, and wondering why we're doing that. What's the purpose, or, are you going to, really struggle in your groups? And I can just share that the reason I've decided to do it every other week, I see you one week and then you meet with your group the other week, is because I want to make the most of our time together with a lot of processing and interactive activities, those sorts of things. And there's a lot of content that I want you to get that really you need to engage with individually or in a small group. And I don't want to overload you. I don't want to, because what could happen if I was running it every week I saw you, then I would probably have a tendency to load up your work that you do outside of class, which you would probably have a really hard time getting to all of it, and you would feel rushed and stressed, and then we would get together and we would do some more content and some more digesting of things, and I just don't think that that's a great learning environment for anybody. So I found that doing 1 week as a whole group, 1 week as a small group and individual work has lightened the load a little bit, provided some flexibility and the opportunity for people to engage as works for them. So that's just the thinking behind it. So yeah, and it's worked it's worked well for cohorts in the past. If we decide that this just isn't a model that's working for us and we need to all meet synchronously every week, I'm willing to pivot and do that. So we can just kind of play that by ear. And you all shared that you're looking forward to learning more about UDL and co-teaching, and that like concrete takeaways are things that you're looking for. You want to be able to learn about something that you feel like you can put into action when you're in your classroom working with your students and your colleagues. So for the collaboration groups, you've done a great job supporting one another. There were some questions about, oh, I can't find this, or where did she put that? And you're able to support one another in like navigating the course site and everything. There is a lot to keep track of, and the content and the pace of the course does tend to pick up. So if you're falling behind or you haven't gotten to something that you needed to do already, just know that things do pick up, and that feeling can get compounded and almost like you're kind of like falling behind. So I encourage you to try to stay on top of things from week to week. I know that we don't all have our books, but again, I've been working with the bookstore, and it seems like things are in the works. But until everybody has their books, I'll make sure to be posting PDFs of the chapters. Again, I feel comfortable doing that because we have purchased the text for each of you. It's just whether or not you've received them. Many of you were wondering what I mean by making your learning public. And so this was like a good conversation that I was able to listen to. So this kind of goes with like the purpose of the collaboration groups, because I know a lot of times if I'm teaching a class, I've had students get caught up in the idea of like, well, I don't know what she means by this, and I don't know what she means by that, and I don't know what she means by this. And then sometimes it can just like put the brakes on everything. And so being with your groups, if you didn't catch something that I said, or you don't remember where something was in the course site, then it's likely somebody else in your collaboration group will. So having those conversations, if you can't figure something out, or I know you guys were providing like tips for each other for how to, you know, do the UDL module. So that's really good to be able to like come together. The making your learning public is an exercise for you to do something with your learning. Like it's not for me, and it's not just for you, it's for an external audience. So you're going to determine what the audience is going to be, and then that's going to dictate the type of artifact you make. So you're going to make one artifact as a group to be shared out at the end of the course. So we're spreading our knowledge of UDL. It needs to be more in-depth learning. So when there is a rubric that I have created for the assignment, and if you look in there, it doesn't talk about format, it doesn't talk about length of pages, it doesn't say anything about that. What I'm looking for is content, and I will be evaluating you on the content that you put in your artifact, and you'll be able to see what content I'm looking for in that rubric. So it's less about, oh, am I doing it right? Because I don't know what's right for you for that particular thing. So it's not about doing it right or wrong. It's about meeting the criteria on the rubric. I don't think I have my volume up very high, but I do think that I heard somebody maybe raise their hand.
Yes, two of us.
Okay. Oh, perfect. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Yes.
No, my question was, and I think this could also just be like the way I like to portray things, or maybe like be creative with things, but
Okay.
I'm like trying to be professional, but I'm also like wanting to have fun with this project. And I don't know where like the line is between like, okay, here, let me make this web versus let me write this rap. That's kind of like, I mean, obviously both ends of the spectrum, but
I think it depends on who your audience is.
okay,
Like if I was going to talk to my superintendent, I probably wouldn't write a rap.
that is correct.
But
Yeah.
if I
Yep.
was wanting to educate my students on how their brain works and and how I'm helping them build motivation in the middle grades, I don't know which book club you're in, but I could definitely see where a rap would be appropriate for like conveying what you're trying to get across to the audience. I don't think that professional means not fun. I think it just depends on what audience you're looking for.
Okay, and like, never mind. I'll pull you later, girl. Thank you, Professor. Sorry.
That's okay. I'm very laid back.
Sorry.
So my question is, where do I find the rubric for the artifact?
Okay, let me show you where that is. So I went ahead and dropped it into, so it was back in week 2, if you need to look for it. I also have it in, which I haven't opened this up for you guys yet. Here is your rubric. So here you can see kind of how I expect to complete it. And then I'm looking for accuracy of content. So I want to make sure that what we're displaying and sharing with others is accurate. I need you to go beyond recall to use application, analysis, making your audience think critically about the content that you're putting in front of them, making sure that the artifact that you choose is authentic for your audience. Again, thinking about who you want to share your knowledge with and what would be most appropriate. So that goes to content and audience. So here, this is more about like, if I'm creating an artifact for families, I'm going to try and stay away from so much jargon. But if I'm creating something for my colleagues who are already familiar with the jargon, then I can use, our acronyms and all of that within my artifact. So definitely thinking about content and the language that we're using. And then this is just more about format and thinking about what's the appropriate way to convey. And then I'd like for you to choose some sort of like call to action. So what do you want them to do with the learning that or with the information that you're sharing with them? Is there something that you want them to think about? Is it next time you're in front of your students or next time you're planning a lesson, consider, blah, blah, blah. I will have this open for everyone to look at. I just haven't opened it up because it's week 4. And I want to make sure that whatever I publish for week 4 activities, that's going to be accurate. I don't want to make a change based on what we do tonight and then have someone have worked ahead and done something that they didn't necessarily need to do. Another place to find it is if you go up to discussions. Here is the making your learning public. And you can see the rubric here. So it is in the discussion forum because what I'm going to ask you to do is to post a thread to that discussion forum. And then that way you'll be able to see everyone's artifact because we won't necessarily have time during class to share them out. And your authentic audience is really the place where we want to put your artifact, like not necessarily just sharing with one another. Okay, I think I heard another hand. Yes, Hannah.
And I feel like you've mentioned the answer to this before, but are we doing this as a group or individually, but like talking with our groups about it?
My expectation is that you create one thing for your group.
So we all work on one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Say my group decides that we want to do a presentation for our colleagues. And what might end up happening is like you would create like a master presentation or something where it's like all the information is the same, but I might individually make a copy of that because I know that my colleagues really like humor. So I'm going to put some I'm going to put an office meme in there, and I'm going to do like whatever gifts, and I know that that's what like is fun and like engaging for my colleagues, but my colleagues might be like, or my other classmate might be like, no way, no gifts, no, that's not me, that's not my crew. We are like, bam, bam, bam. So you can adapt it to meet your individual needs, but I'm just asking for one artifact to be submitted per group.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Another thing is that some of you asked for examples, and I do have some examples, and I'll put those in. I'll write myself a note. I'll add examples to week 4. But truly, it's not, they're not earth shattering. They're not like, perfect. It's just people pulling things together and like figuring out who their audience is and what they want to share. So I can show you a few examples, but just know that there's nothing perfect and there's no right or wrong way to do it. I think a lot of you would love to have me say like, this is the right way and this is the wrong way to do things. That definitely came across in your journals. So if we get to the point where everybody's, we're going way down the wrong track, then I will pull us back together and I'll solidify things. But I don't get that feeling from anybody. Like I feel like you're all on the right track. Which is why I put you're off to a great start. The UDL guided notes. You guys gave a lot of time and attention to that assignment, which I know it requires, completing that guided notes document. And there were definitely some mixed reviews on that guided notes format. So I'm just going to give you a second now, based on what I shared about my noticings. I'm just going to give you 1 minute while I go out in the hallway and get the neighbor kids out of my house. And I'm going to ask you what your noticings are from weeks 1 and 2. Okay, so be right back.
Are you wanting us to discuss this with the crowd?
You don't have to. Just think about it in your mind, and then we're gonna do a big discussion. But don't say anything yet because I want to type in your ideas. But I just have to get the kids out of the house. They're tearing it up. All right. You can't be in the house. All your notices are working.
She's so fun. I love her. Queen. I've never said that. Sorry.
I had my camera off because my kids were trying to be all in it.
You got cute babies though, girl. They're so cute. You should put them in the camera every day.
Oh, thank you.
Front and center.
Okay. All right. Okay, so I usually just like to open this up to the floor. You can tell me things that worked, things that didn't work, anything about weeks 1 and 2 that you think would be beneficial for me or for your classmates to hear.
Sorry.
Oh,
Okay.
you go, girl. You got it.
Right.
Yep.
We discussed, UDL and diverse learners and then accessibility and everything and challenges and overcoming barriers. And for me, I felt like that whole all the assignments we had to get in, just trying to navigate was a barrier for me.
Okay.
Going through the module, we've done Iris 1,000 times, but going through that document, it took me 3 days to finish it. It was very overwhelming to me. So I had to step away and come back and step away and come back. I think that was the hardest part for me. The 2 chapters was actually very interesting, but I could not read it digitally. I had to print it out. It felt so overwhelming digitally. I don't know why, but once I printed it out and laid down and I was just reading, it just really captured my attention and I really enjoyed the readings. But going through that module and answering all those questions was very overwhelming for me.
Okay. All right. So it took you longer than 2.5 hours?
Oh yeah, the module was easy. It was answering all those questions that took up a lot of time. So I had to come back.
Yeah.
I did like a quarter of the page one day, a quarter of the page another day, and then finish it up on the 3rd day.
Okay. So you were able to break it into like 3 segments for yourself.
Yes, for
Okay.
me. And luckily you gave us a week to complete it. I guess I had higher expectations for myself is where the anxiety came in at, to be honest, because I'm used to being able to sit down in one setting and get an assignment done. Unless it's a lesson plan, those take me a few days. But
Mhm.
I had expectations of myself to get it done more quickly, but I didn't. So I was disappointed. So I don't know. Maybe you knew it would take us a few days, but I didn't know it was going to take a few days for myself. So that was discouraging for me.
Okay. Yeah, no, I definitely don't want it to be discouraging, but one thing that like is encouraging for me is to hear that you were able to like do what you needed for yourself, knowing that like just to come back to it 3 separate times. I understand how that could be discouraging though. Okay, what else? What did other people think about the guided notes or anything else?
I didn't mind the guided notes. I mean, it helped me kind of think through the process. I was just
Okay.
confused. And then, like, it was one of the things we talked about in our collaboration meeting, but like, I didn't know with the whole document, since it had like guided notes and then assessment,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know like whether we just did the guided notes or if we needed to do the assessment part too.
Mm.
I mean, I just did it all because I was like, why would it be there if I wasn't supposed to? But
Yeah.
I remember you saying we didn't have to do the assessment. So yeah. But you were talking about like the module
quiz.
assessment.
Yeah. Yep. Like I think that all of that is still really good learning. So like by the end, you're like applying like that piece at the end is more about the application of the content. So it's one, engaging with the content and thinking about it, and then it's then applying it. And what I didn't want was somebody to go ahead and do the quiz at the end, because I just wasn't going to take a score on that.
And I think I liked that. It made it less pressure. Like, I wasn't worried about taking a quiz. It was more, I can take my time and answer these questions. And then, like, yeah.
Okay. How did other people experience it? Knowing that we have a big variability in learners, right? So everybody's going to experience things a little bit differently. Yep. You just have to shout out.
Okay. I guess my I enjoyed it. I thought it was good to like I answer the questions and all that. I guess I just don't know how much information I'm supposed to be putting for each one. Is it kind of just like, and does it need to be in like complete sentences, or are we just kind of like putting our thoughts down? Like how proper does it need to look for for us to turn it in? Because like sometimes notes, I just like scribble my thoughts down, but I don't know, like from your point of view, if you're reading it, if it's easier, if it's more of like, I don't know, grammatically correct.
I tend to just, I guess, probably, I'd hate to say like, oh, you need 5 sentences here if really you can capture your thoughts in 3. So I tend to not give like requirements for length or things like that. Like you'll notice that in your reflection journals, I'm not giving you any length requirements, but I do expect to be able to understand what you're thinking. And so if you put down 1 line, I'm probably not going to get a good sense of what your thoughts are, just generally. But if you can do it in like 2 to 3 sentences or even a paragraph, I tend to leave those things up to you because I want to transfer the learning to you. Like you're not learning for the sake of for me, you're learning for yourself. So that's why I tend to leave those things open. But as far as like correct grammar and things, I would expect correct grammar. I'm not going to necessarily send it back to you if you have misspellings or something.
I just didn't know if it needed to be more like a paragraph or if it's just kind of like spark noting like our thoughts. You know what I'm saying?
Can be either. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. I don't.
I just didn't like essay format or more of, I don't know, just putting our thoughts down in a couple sentences, but maybe not necessarily like, I don't know, they flow.
Yeah. I'm not somebody who's going to nickel and dime you on assignments. Like I honestly am getting into your assignments because I want to know what you're thinking.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So yeah.
And I may just see how I do on the first one and kind of go from there.
Yeah, I can maybe set the expectation that like, yeah, let's use some correct grammar. But unless otherwise indicated, just do the format that works for you.
Okay.
That's a good question. That was something I hadn't quite thought about. Yeah.
I had that thought too, Sarah.
Sure.
When for the teachers, the 3 teachers, you ask what are their barriers and how can they change the lesson plan to make it, more accessible for the students.
Mm-hmm.
So when I listed it, I was like, okay, I'm thinking, talking back to myself, I'm like, I can list barriers in a list format and I can give what they can do to restructure the lesson. But I was like, that doesn't really convey a complete thought, is how I thought it out. So I thought about you and I having a conversation or me having a conversation with somebody else is how I wanted to respond to your questions with a lot of those.
Yeah, that's totally fine. I haven't gotten into anyone's module and been like, this looks like a total mess and it needs to be redone. Like I'm not here for that. Like I'm here to understand what you're thinking about and yeah, if I'm uncertain, then I would definitely, like, as I provide you feedback, I would just be like, hey, what did you mean by that? Or have you thought about this? Or, your comment about this made me think about that. That's the only kind of stuff I'm really interested in, knowing your ideas. But I can be more explicit about that.
There's a book called Nickel and Dime as well. When you said that, I thought about it.
Honestly, I don't have the executive function skills to like keep up on all that kind of stuff. Like I can't be like, oh man, like this person, like, let me put all these, like, they made 5 errors, check, or how many days late is something. Like, they don't have extra energy to give to that kind of thing. So I hope I don't do that to people. I don't think I do, but it's probably something I can be reflective
I'm sure
on.
we appreciate the grace because we have had instructors that will nickel and dime us. So we appreciate it.
I just don't have it in me to stay organized enough to nickel and dime people. Okay. All right. What else is working or didn't work from weeks 1 and 2?
Can I, it's not like a question per se, but maybe more of like a noticing about myself as a learner while I was going through the process.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay.
Yep.
I have, like, I enjoy talking to my peers and like working through the thought process. Like, that's how my mind works.
Mm-hmm.
But I also would love maybe to have you available for like a quick like recap, or like if it's on, like, maybe, and I don't want to ask too much of you. I understand you're a busy gal. But like, maybe on the same time on those Tuesday evenings, like, hey, could I pop in and be like, hi, I have a quick question, like, from this reading, like making sure I'm on the right track.
Okay, so like hold like office hours.
I mean, I don't want to like, I mean, I know you got your thing,
weeks.
so, but I don't know. I just like to talk and get through things, and I do respect your professional opinion as a
Sure. Yeah.
professor.
Okay,
So-
let me think about that.
I love to be validated, I guess, is kind of the moral of the story.
You're right, Chloe. You're just doing a great job.
Thank you.
Okay. Would
Chloe, I know we asked some questions on our document, right? Did you send her the questions that we had from our group?
I believe it's in there. I think she's
Okay.
still working through it all. So,
Okay.
she got it. I'll let you know what I know.
So I know that's one way we can get feedback. It'll take a little bit, but I think as long as we document our questions and submit, right, you'll be able to get back to us as well.
Yeah. And some things, like if there's a question that I think is going to be answered through your collaboration group, I might not get back to you right away because I think, oh, well, they're going to end up talking about that. But then when I listen to your recording, if I don't hear it brought up, then I will then get back to you and say this or that, or, oh, I think that this was misunderstood or something like that. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Things that you liked, things you didn't like? Did you watch the overview video? Did you use the checklists? Did you, I know that, Hacienda, did you say that the sound didn't work on the video?
Yeah, and I think Anita said she couldn't see it, right?
Mine
I
didn't
couldn't hear
either.
anything.
That's
Yeah.
bizarre.
Yeah, I
the
couldn't
sound
get it
didn't
to
work
load.
for me either.
The sound didn't, geez.
Yep.
All right. All right. Well, now I need to like sort that out. And then Anita, you said it wouldn't open for you at all?
No. I haven't really ever had that problem before either, so.
Okay, so some people it did work for. Okay. I'm not sure why it would work for some rather than others. One thing to do is like, switch your browser over. Like if you are in Firefox or Safari, you could switch over to Chrome. Sometimes that helps. Just, I don't know why. But sometimes those kinds of things can be helpful if something's not loading correctly out of Brightspace. I know that that's been a solution that people have been able to find before, but I mean, I'm not sure. I can't recommend a browser or anything like that.
Anita, I ended up, because I also could not hear it. I could access it, but I couldn't hear it. And once I switched over to a different email that's linked to my web browser, like my school email, then it had the sound. I don't know if it's like accessibility via our laptops through Perry, but
I don't know because I have like my work computer through Perry, but the computer I do UIndy with is like my personal computer.
well, NVM not applying to me. I only have one.
Sorry. Thanks though.
All right, we'll try and keep an eye on that. I'll see if I can't maybe just put everything through YouTube. I don't know. Unfortunately, my understanding of technology is like this much. So I'm not great at troubleshooting. I only kind of know what I can do, and then unfortunately I can't really address when things don't work. But I can think about maybe putting everything through YouTube and then dropping a YouTube link on there. And then that might make it a little bit more consistently available for everyone, no matter. And that's definitely what I want. I don't want there to be a barrier to being able to access that video for sure.
For me, like the biggest qualm, is that a word? Qualm? The biggest, like, I don't know, barrier I had with that is like, did like having that resource. It wasn't necessary. I think this is like the first class that I've had somebody like really be on top of, like, you know, being able to refer back. But like I was able to also just watch it and kind of see where you were at. So like not the end of the world. Don't stress personally, but because like I could figure it out and see where you clicked, but that was me.
Okay. Well, I definitely want everyone to be able to equitably access it. So I'm going to work on that. Thank you. All right, well, we're going to move forward in what we're doing tonight, not because I want to shut down the conversation, but it kind of feels like I might have gotten all of the feedback. If there's anything else, you can send me an email, or you can, share it at another time. We're going to do that every single time we meet. We're going to debrief the last 2 weeks. So something that you forgot to say this time, you can always say it next time. All right, so we're going to do this activity called the UDL barbecue, and this is my favorite class to teach. This is my favorite night, because what we're doing is we're transitioning from last week. You were in a module that was very linear, and it was a lot of content. And yes, it was applied. You could watch videos, you could listen to audio recordings. There were a lot of like interactives within that module. So if you engaged with all of the content, it wasn't just reading, it was watching, listening, hands-on, moving things around. Quick checks for understanding and all of that. So if you engaged with the entire module, then you got a lot of different types of activities, which is one reason I really like that module. But I do believe that there really is a value in then trying to take a step back from like technical understanding and to think about things in new ways. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use the analogy of a backyard barbecue to think about UDL and using UDL in our classrooms. I'm going to ask that you not engage with the barbecue presentation, because it is more effective if we stay together. If you've already opened it and you've already looked through it, then you're going to have a really great sense as to what the activities are. But I think if we move through it together, then that's just more effective for the activity, and it makes it a little bit more enjoyable. Up to you though, you have access to them. So is everybody ready to get started with the activity? I think it'll be fun. This is usually a really fun evening. All right. We are going to do it. All right, let me find. I want to start the slideshow. Okay, so we are going to do a UDL backyard barbecue. And so if you remember back to the last time we met, so week 1, I talked about context, culture, and choice as being 3 things that are really important to the implementation of UDL and making it effective. And so when I was giving this presentation one time, I was giving it to an international audience, and I'd already like done the presentation a few times and like, you know, just like a domestic audience. But then I realized like, uh-oh, the context that I find myself in and the culture that I have grown up in is going to be different than that of many of my my audience members. So I thought, you know what, I need to define what a backyard barbecue is. So I'm just saying that to say, how many times do we kind of jump into something and expect our students to already have the background knowledge that they need to be able to access the content that we're giving them? But sometimes we do need to step back and just say, okay, this is actually the context in which we're learning, and culturally, this is what I'm talking about. So when I went ahead and put that together, one thing to know about a backyard barbecue is that many different dishes are served. Sometimes the host makes all of the food, while other times guests pitch in foods they've made, and guests typically are going to serve themselves at a backyard barbecue. Food is cooked outdoors and on the grill. Often the food cooked on the grill are meats, but sometimes there are grilled vegetables too. And guests eat, drink, and hang out outside for the most part. A barbecue can last well after everyone is done eating, and the vibe is laid back. So that just kind of gives you a sense, again, just thinking about setting up the context and recognizing that we would all be coming from a different cultural lens into this learning opportunity. All right, so you're getting ready to host a backyard barbecue. In your group, I want you to decide what food you're going to make for each food group. So you need protein, carbohydrate, veggie, and dessert. So your goal is to provide a meal that all of your guests can enjoy. So right now, I'm randomly putting you into a breakout room. You're going to be with the same people every time you go into a breakout room. So your job, let's see, how many do we have going here? It's all right. I think 4 people in a breakout room will be fine. Okay, so your job, and you can just write it down on a scratch of paper. You're not turning anything into me. Your job right now is just to talk amongst your group and start to create a menu that includes a protein, carbohydrate, veggie, and dessert. Okay, that's all the instruction that you're going to get. I'm going to put you in your rooms for 6 minutes so that you have time to kind of process it all. And then we're going to come back. So please only do what is in front of you. That's the only ask. Okay. All right. So you are setting forth your menu, and it's a collaborative menu. you guys finished?
Yes.
All right. I will tell you, some people go into that first breakout and they're not done even like 10 minutes later. And I'm like, what are you doing? And it's like everybody's like, you know, trying to make sure that their item gets on the menu.
Oh.
And it can be quite a thing. So I'm like, yeah, 6 minutes.
I mean, if we were really eating it, we might be a little more picky, but
Yeah, exactly.
but all of ours sounds good anyway, so I'd be fine with it.
We're like, just get KFC. It's fine. Oh, shoot. Yeah, but you never know how people are gonna navigate the whole thing. This is my doggo here saying hi. His name is Scratchy.
Oh, that's so cute.
That was before we knew he liked to scratch on everything. Go. All right. So we are back. All right, so one thing that I'm asking you to do during this activity is to think about a backyard barbecue and then think about teaching. So we're going to flip back and forth to putting on different lenses, wearing different hats as we go through. So one thing to know that when we're designing our lessons using UDL, we have a goal in mind, what we want our students to achieve. And that is, those are those like learning targets, student learning outcomes that we're familiar with. Those are our standards, those sorts of things. And a lot of times where teachers get hung up and they put barriers into student learning is that what happens is like the learning target includes the how. So for example, we could say students will show their learning by creating a PowerPoint presentation. So if I really just wanted my students to show their learning, is it required that they have to make a PowerPoint presentation? Because that could be a barrier for a student, and they might be able to be more creative or do something different where they can share their learning more fully in a different way. So that's where choice comes in. So we want to exclude the how in order to be able to provide flexibility. So that's our goal. And then we want to visualize. So what are our students going to be doing? What are the multiple pathways I'm going to be providing to them so that they can learn the content and show me what they know? So we have to ask ourselves what barriers might be present that would keep my students from being able to learn. And once we identify those potential barriers, we can make a more inclusive pathway for all of our students to learn. And in the end, we want them to have an understanding, right? We're looking for them to internalize their learning and become what UDL says or calls expert learners. So how are we creating an environment in which all of our students are able to make informed decisions about how they learn best? So when I hear my students, previous cohorts talk about what works for them in learning, a lot of times I hear things that are much more standardized across learning environments. So reading, writing, things that are just more typically found in a learning environment. So ways that people present information and or in ways that you're asked to show what you know. But what UDL wants us to do is to empower our students to know themselves better as learners. One, that's why I started out the way we did in week 1. Like I want you to articulate who you are as a learner, both for my benefit and for yours. Because if you know yourself better as a learner, you're going to be able to be a better teacher. And so we're trying to really arm our students with the information that they need to know themselves as learners, so that when they are provided flexibility and choice, they can make decisions that are right for them. So let's take Hacienda's example here. She had said like she was feeling overwhelmed by trying to do the whole thing at once. So she knows herself as a learner, and she broke it up into 3 days, and that worked for her. There's no way I could have anticipated that for any of you, but it's like taking some ownership, making sure that you're getting to know yourself as a learner, and therefore you can empower your students to know themselves better. So then we're going to switch our hat, right? We're going to put back on our barbecue hat. So your goal, I'm going to give you your goal, is to provide a meal that all of your guests can enjoy. So now when the visualization starts, it's like, what barriers might there be to all guests finding a meal that they're going to enjoy? Did you provide multiple pathways for finding a meal? And is there choice in each food group? I didn't tell you to do that. But as we start to think about the pathways that our guests can become expert eaters, we want to create an environment in which our guests are able to make informed decisions about what dishes they try. And they're going to be more equipped to do this if they find themselves, like if their culture is represented, if the context in which they're participating in this is warm and welcoming. So we're going to look a little bit more at the oops. I want that to go away. Okay. So when we think about context, culture, and choice, we're thinking about learner variability. And I talked about that week 1. So we want to intentionally design things that are based with informed decision making, right? So there are some frameworks out there that can help guide the way we intentionally design our lessons. And so one of those frameworks is culturally relevant teaching practices. So thinking about how are we representing our students' culture and bringing them in and helping them see themselves in the curriculum, for example. Variability is deeply affected by context and culture. So as I started to talk about earlier, the situation we find ourselves in influences the choices we make. So this weekend, I went to a birthday party and I didn't know anybody. Like it was one of my son's friends, but like there were no other like parents or anybody there that I knew, except for the one little kid with the birthday party. And so I entered that feeling like a lot of anxiety, like, oh my gosh, am I going to know anybody? Like, what am I going to do? Do I just want to be in and out fast? And like those kinds of thinking in that context is very different than if I were to be going to a birthday party where I know everybody, right? And then I might be more social and I might be more outgoing and I might, be want to show up a little bit earlier to pick Ollie up so I can see everybody, that kind of thing. And then the extent to which my culture is present influences the choices that I make. So if there's some familiarity and I find other people who like look like me, sound like me, are from a place that I'm from, if I feel like it's a really welcoming environment, that's going to affect the way I act in a situation, and the choices that we make. So if my context and culture are present, then I'm going to be making choices that are probably going to be more authentic to me. So we want our learners to be able to choose how they learn, with whom they learn, and they get to choose how they show their learning. And one of the big important things is that when I say that, people are like, what? Is it a free for all? Like, is our whole school going to come crashing down when we start offering choice? And no, it won't, because you're setting the parameters in which your students are making choices. So very similar with our eaters, right? We want to intentionally design based on informed decisions. So what are the cultures of my guests? Are they members of my culture? And are we members of the dominant culture in our community? So those sorts of things I would know about. And then context and culture. The context of a barbecue in Indiana is going to be very different than a barbecue in Louisiana. The goings on, the workings, like how everything's presented, and the social norms, those are going to be different in different parts of the US. The context of eating with close friends is very different than the ones that you've just met. I love me some chicken wings, but if I'm meeting some people for the very first time, I'm probably not going to end up with like barbecue sauce all over my hands and my face and everything for eating chicken wings. I'm probably going to get like chicken tenders or something, right? So the context that I'm eating in is going to determine. And if I see my culture present in dishes, I'm going to be more likely to want to try them. I'm probably going to be a lot more interested in if there's everything's new and one thing is familiar, then I'm probably going to go for that familiar thing first. So again, we're offering choice and we're setting up the parameters in which our guests will be making those choices. All right, so I'm going to send you back into your breakout rooms. What I'm going to ask you to do is to revisit your menu. I'm going to give you your context. It's a fall backyard barbecue in Indiana. You need to think about who your eaters are, who has been invited to your barbecue, and thinking about, do they all have options within each food group? Any changes or additions that you would like to make? Okay. We're going to go back in for 5 minutes. You should be with the same groups that you already were. If you get done early, you're welcome to come out. But consider ways that context, culture, and choice will be impacting your menu.
Sarah, just right quick, are we pretending our group members are the guests?
It's whoever you want to invite.
Okay.
Yep.
Don't read that last message then, sorry.
Where to draw the line for choice? Are you going to go outside? Okay, do we have everybody back? Awesome. All right. So you're all ready to host your backyard barbecue tomorrow. The guest list is set and you've created your menu. All you need is for your guests to arrive. As your guests arrive, you learn a few things about your eaters. One of your guests is vegan. 2 of your guests are gluten intolerant. And another guest is a wheelchair user. So let's flip the script a little bit. So as your students arrive, you learn a few things about them. 1 of your students is autistic. 2 of your students are emergent bilinguals. And another student is a wheelchair user. So I want to address something before we continue. So is incorporating the UDL principles enough to meet the needs of all of your learners? And I'm going to say not really. So the 4 students we just learned about are going to require specific strategies for every lesson based on their unique needs. Yes, you can be proactive in providing strategies, and you may even open them up to all students, but those students will always need these strategies, while others within the UDL environment can opt in. So this is where differentiated instruction and accommodation, like those sorts of things, can come into play. So it's less about, so like UDL is like your tier 1. UDL is tier 1. That's the environment that you're creating for all of your students. And then we start to think about accommodations, differentiated instruction, and then specially designed instruction, all layered on top. So UDL is important. It's extremely important, but it is more of a tier 1 across the entire class rather than it being just for our special needs students. I think there were some things in the chat. It is. Right. No, being a wheelchair user doesn't necessarily impact their ability to eat. Definitely not. But there are other considerations, like how tall is the table that you're displaying your food on? You know, if they roll up to the table, are they able to, sometimes like ambulatory hands, trying to think about the right words to use. Like they can't necessarily use their hands to like grab tongs very well or, spoon up something without dropping some of it, right? So physical limitations are definitely play a part. And so if you just have people sitting around holding their plate, but I'm a wheelchair user, like how do I roll my chair? How do I get myself to the right spot that I want to get to while holding my plate and my drink? So there are definitely things to consider if you know that a person who's going to come to your house is a wheelchair user. Great. So I am going to ask you to go back to your barbecue. And this is kind of like the last big conversation you're going to have. And then we're going to have a conversation together. So knowing that you have 1 guest who's vegan, 2 who are gluten intolerant, and another guest who's a wheelchair user, let's consider these questions. Have you already prepared a dish in each food group that will meet their unique needs? What about the physical environment? Are all of your guests able to access the environment and eat independently? Is there any information that you need to provide about the dishes so that your eaters can make informed decisions? And try and think about, you are an experienced host. I think like I am an experienced teacher, but what kind of tricks and tools can I have in my toolbox in order to make sure that I can meet the needs of my guests? All right. So I'm going to put you back in and I want you to think about those things. And we're just going to do another 5 minutes in breakout rooms. And then we're going to come back and we're going to have a bit of a bigger discussion about a few other things. Okay. So just another 5-minute breakout room. To hit those questions. Okay. I think everybody is rolling back in. So, whew, the backyard barbecue is over and you're exhausted. That was a lot of work for one afternoon barbecue. However, the more barbecues you host, the easier it will be. You'll have more experience creating menus that account for variability in eaters' needs. And now you know the must-haves for any barbecue you host from here on out, given that you would have the same guest list. So you can think about our lesson in the same way. Like, whoa, the lesson is over and you're exhausted. That was a lot of work for one afternoon lesson. However, the more lessons you create, the easier it will be. You will have more experience creating lessons that account for variability, and now you know the differentiation and accommodations that your students require, given that you have these 4 unique students. So another thing that we can talk through is just the idea that how a backyard barbecue menu could change based on what looks good at the grocery, what season it is it a special occasion. And that would be the same way with your lessons. Like once you, start to use the UDL principles and, design your lessons perhaps maybe a little bit differently, over the course of a year, things are going to change based on what you're teaching, your assessments, areas of professional development that you've participated in. And one thing that I want you to know is that the one meal that you're feeding at your backyard barbecue doesn't have to encompass the dietary needs of every single guest, right? I don't have to make a completely balanced meal for every single person who's coming. The same thing applies to our lessons. Like one individual lesson is not going to meet every student's entire learning needs. It's just not possible. But what you're going to do, and what I'm trying to do across this entire course, is to give you a balanced diet of learning within a UDL environment. So not every single activity, lesson is going to resonate really with you. Like your learner profile, it might not speak to your learner profile in a way that it might speak to someone else's learner profile. So that's the same way with your students. So don't feel like everything has to be perfect for all of your students, because you're not going to be able to have it perfect for every single student all the time. We're just thinking about providing that balanced diet. All right, so I'm interested to hear what you guys discussed throughout your time. Maybe it was adapting your menu. Maybe it was experiencing the brief exercise of learning through an analogy. So you had like some good content last week in the module, and then this is a different way of thinking about it. I'm interested, not because I want you to tell me like I did a good job, but again, it's like knowing yourself as a learner is really important in order to be able to craft and design lessons and learning opportunities for your students.
I think I think the first thing, I mean, when we got in our breakout rooms, I kind of knew where you were going to go with this, but in the back of my head, we need to provide all the different choices for proteins and take into consideration the different gluten-free, dairy-free, kind of think about that. But the one thing that I did not account for was the environment.
Mm-hmm.
The physical environment of, you threw somebody in there that was in a wheelchair, and that didn't even register with me. So.
Yeah, and it's trying to think about how does that then apply to like the learning environment that we're creating, right? Not necessarily even about like a student in a wheelchair, but sensory things and everything, like, or sometimes like if you're an elementary educator like I was, love having all the things on the wall, but sometimes it can be a little overwhelming. So yeah, thinking about how yes, there's a lesson plan and like what I'm teaching, but then it's also the environment in which I'm teaching. What is on everyone else's mind?
I had a thought that kind of went along with that.
Mm-hmm.
Just connecting it to my classroom. I'm in a self-contained classroom of K through 5.
Mm-hmm.
So like thinking of the tables I'm putting them at, I'm going to need to figure out the taller kids versus the smaller kids and putting them at the right tables, but then also figuring out like behaviorally who can sit next to each other and who can't. So like
Is that kindergarten and fifth graders all at the same time,
kindergarten through 5th grade.
but not at the same time?
Yes, at the same time. So
How many are in
all
your
of them.
room?
I know.
There's 2 of us and we have 22 kids total.
That's a lot. But I think that your point, Hannah, is really important because when we think about the physical environment, a lot of times we put our littles into furniture that's too big for them. And then they're constantly falling out or they're, kicking the person across the way from them because their feet
Standing
don't
on
touch
it.
the ground, right?
Yeah.
So I would encourage you to bring in your occupational therapist as well whenever you're starting to look at like how to make the environment work for your students, because they'll have a really great sense of how to help your students understand where they are in space and setting up an environment that'll work, because you might only have big chairs and like how do you accommodate a little in that chair. So yeah, definitely. Anybody else have anything that they want to share about that exercise? I talked about it a little bit, but how was learning in the module different than learning in the barbecue activity? So we had something that was set up in the module, and then we were learning through analogy.
I love discussion. I'm a big back and forth girl. So talking to like my peers and getting like a back and forth response like in real time is very nice for me, because I also just, I don't know. I'm not like I don't know. I learn by like interaction. I don't know if that's it's not like a learning method, but like it seems more tangible and like more, I don't know, personable. And I like that, little twist to give me a little bit more of like a engagement piece.
Yeah. So one was an independent activity, one is a small group activity.
Yeah. I think the module for me is a little bit more challenging because I have to think a little harder about it because I don't do this every day. I'm not a teacher. So I have to really focus on the information that's given in the module and what I've learned in class. So that takes a little bit more brain power for me versus a barbecue. Everybody has done it. You can plan a barbecue like that if you have the funds and the space to do it. And it doesn't take a lot of thought to do it, really.
Okay.
I love a good analogy. I like being able to take what to me is like dry classroom material and applying it to real life, bringing that back to the classroom.
Yeah, and Angelina, I think when I listened to your discussion with your group, that you talked a lot about doing that. So like whenever I was thinking about tonight and talking about context and culture, I don't remember if I wrote it to you or not, but that like you've talked about, I mean, I think it was a little cheeky and has a lot of truth to it, like bring it back to stuff that they might have been getting in trouble with that brought them to you. But like honoring that almost, right? About like that is part of the culture that they're coming from and the context that they're coming from, and how do we leverage some of those things that they are very familiar with in their lives to to help make information clearer, especially things that are much more abstract. Like UDL can feel very abstract and like it's hard to kind of wrap your mind around it. But an exercise similar to this, where you're learning through analogy, it kind of takes off a lot of that pressure to know the UDL words and to know all the lingo and everything and to get everything right. And this is a very much more like nebulous activity where we can kind of think about it in a bit of a different way. Okay. I'm going to switch over now back to our course site. So we have about 15 minutes left. And I know we're not going to be able to get through this full conversation. And I don't know why I keep putting this into this night's course, because I don't think I've gotten to it in like week 3 with any of my cohorts. I feel like it works really well here, but we just don't get around to it. So you'll see some of this SDI stuff come up in next week, and then whenever I see you again during week 5. One thing that I wanted to talk with you about is the reflection journal and the intention with it. So I want you to be using metacognitive strategies when you're thinking about instruction. So what I mean by metacognition, which I'm sure all of you are familiar with, but just to make sure that we're all on the same page, metacognition is thinking about thinking. So what were the thought processes that you were using while you were engaging in the learning? What did you experience as a learner? Why did it work? Why didn't it work? And how can you use your experiences as a learner to inform your work as a teacher? So these are going to be things that we're talking about over and over again, but until you understand how you learn in a UDL environment, it's going to be much harder for you to create a UDL environment for your students. So again, it's just about thinking about being a learner and like, what does that feel like and what feels comfortable and what's working and then what's not, and understand why that might be the case. And one thing that can help you do that is a UDL this week table. So it is divided into the 3 principles of UDL, right, that you've already learned about: engagement, representation, and action and expression. So you're going to be able to use that to identify strategies that I used this week in our course. So things that leverage context, culture, and choice to be able to, engage you in learning. And then I want you to think about why I might have used those strategies and how they were used, and identify ways that you might be able to use those strategies with students in your setting. So again, I just want to emphasize that this isn't, I don't ask you to do these journal entries, to so I can sit back and like read about all the great things I'm doing with UDL. Like, that's not the purpose at all about this. It's just getting you to think about your learning experience. So when we think about the principle of engagement, we're right here in the green column. So the areas are welcoming interests and identities. So what did I do intentionally to make that happen? What did I do intentionally to help you sustain effort and persistence? What did I do intentionally to increase your emotional capacity for the course tonight? And so on and so forth. So when you are doing your reflection journal, right here it is. So it's due on Sunday. I want you to be thinking and back to, and you can reference exactly the UDL this week table if you want to, but essentially here are the prompts. Describe the principles and how they were applied. So that's, again, going back to that table. You can read in the table about how I applied the principles. explain how they contributed to your learning. So is there something particular that was done this week that really resonated with you, that you felt like was a great way to, you know, meet the variability that you're coming to the class with? Maybe there's something in there that didn't contribute to your learning and you want to talk about why that didn't work for you. Knowing what works and then what doesn't work, both of those things are really important. And explore ideas for applying principles in your setting. And I want you to choose at least one concrete example that you could use to implement. This doesn't have to be a 3-page paper, right? It's just making sure that you are using that metacognition to think about how you're thinking about your learning. Last week, everybody got full points because all I wanted you to do was like, tell me what you were thinking. I am going to be using this rubric. I will tell you the last 2 cohorts that I've used this rubric with, people panic because when I use the rubric, if you haven't followed what I'm asking you to do, then they end up getting a really low score and they think like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fail the class. Don't get panicked if you get a really low score. I'm just going to point you back to the rubric so you can see the criteria. Here, I want to see that you have an understanding of UDL principles and application. I want to see that you can reflect on your learning. I want you to be thoughtful and provide examples. I want you to apply those UDL principles, so thinking about being creative but realistic in ways that you can apply it in your setting. Here is for those of you who are, you know, wanting a little bit more like structure to what the expectations are for when I read it. I need it to be easy to follow. I need your ideas to be logical and sequenced, well structured, and that your grammar and word usage needs to be correct. Now, a few like hiccups here, like not a big deal, but that is what I'm looking for if you want to receive full credit, is something that's logical, structured, and has correct grammar. Okay, so, and you can see here what the different levels of that are. So I don't want you to get panicked or anything like that. I'm not going to give you an example journal because I want it to be your own. Remember, you can submit a written response, a video response, or a voice response. So that's one reason why I don't have any like page requirements or sentences or paragraphs or anything, because you can just open up the video response and record a video or just your voice, or you can submit a written response. But I will be using that rubric to evaluate your journal entries. If you receive a score that's lower than what you want, you are welcome to resubmit. So I'm not, and it would be without penalty, right? Like it's not about doing it my way where, you know, you have to get it right on the first time, but it is about that metacognitive piece. Like I need to see that you're going deep with the content. Okay. I'm still ironing out the details for week 4, but essentially you are going to be doing these co-teaching adventures. So I've given you an estimated completion time again. This is based on what other students have told me it takes them to complete it. It's not going to be the same for everybody, but that is an estimated completion time. So you might just want to give yourself a heads up, maybe at the beginning of the week, take a look at what I'm asking you to do, and then you can prioritize your time from there. But I'm offering you 3 different submodules, and you're going to choose one. I'll put this in the video, but when you get into your groups, don't think that you need to do all the co-teaching modules, right? Okay. So co-teaching 101 is the basics. Maybe you have no experience or limited experience with co-teaching and you think of yourself as a novice. You would opt into Co-Teaching 101, and here is your document for that. You're going to go to this tablet, or sorry, not tablet, this Padlet. And you're going to use this document and make a copy of it to complete your adventure. You can't see these yet because I haven't published it yet. Co-Teaching 201. This is like, hey, I have a little bit of experience with this. I know the basics of co-teaching, and I want to think about like co-teaching through the lens of specially designed instruction. So you have a Padlet here and a Padlet here. So now you have two Padlets, one for co-teaching and one for special education. You'll use this document here, and you can choose that adventure, that co-teaching adventure. Or if you are an independently minded person, and I heard from some people that the guided notes were too strict and too prescriptive, and they wanted more, ability to decide what they wanted to do, then this one would be for you. Okay, so you can take yourself on your own adventure. You will be able to use what's in Co-Teaching 101 and Co-Teaching 201, and you will create your own document. So you would come here for Co-Teaching 101, and you have the Co-Teaching Padlet. Here you have your special education Padlet. And what I offer you for Co-Teaching 301 is just an adventure that you want to go on. So you'll engage with the resources like you want to. You'll complete something that captures at least 2 of these things. That's the requirement. You have to hit at least 2 of these topics. And then you're going to upload that worksheet, whatever you create for yourself to do here for the co-teaching adventure assignment. You will have your collaboration group. Again, this is where you can find the Making Your Learning Public assignment, where it's a discussion board, and you can see all the details here for the rubric. Start going heavy into the rubrics this week. Again, I'll just say you can't see the week 4 stuff yet because I haven't published it. I wanted to make sure that I knew exactly how much of the content we got through, and I know kind of what we need to do for week 4. So that will be available to you no later than Friday afternoon. And then you're going to have those 2 weekends along with the whole week to be able to complete those assignments. Okay, what questions do you have about what the expectations are for this week, or for this coming week? What's on your mind?
So what are we discussing with our collaboration group, or are we doing this co-teaching module together?
Okay, good question. Thank you, Anita. You're going to do the co-teaching model individually. So you're going to take whichever adventure it matches your readiness. So if you're a novice to co-teaching, you might choose Co-Teaching 101. If you know a little bit about co-teaching and you want to think about how do I deliver specially designed instruction in a co-taught setting, you would go for 201. If you want to go rogue and, do your thing, you can with Co-Teaching 301. You'll have access to both of those Padlets, and then you can engage with the content and take it in whichever direction you want to. So if you have time, I know some people talked about this in their group where they weren't sure if they had to do their independent work before they got into their groups. I'm not requiring you to do that because I don't know the cadence of your schedule, right? I don't know if when you can get to doing all the independent work. So I don't want to tell you when you have to do that. Is it great, or is it helpful to have already done your independent work before you get into your group? Absolutely. So that way, if you have questions about how to do it, then you have your group right there. If you, you know, and then you can like discuss the course content, those sorts of things. But in your collaboration group, you're only responsible to synchronously talk about the book that you're reading and following that plan loosely that you sent me through that Google form. And then the co-taught Padlet is, or the co-taught adventure is one that you do independently. What other questions can I answer tonight? Right, just to say again, if you get back your reflection journal and it's not the score that you were anticipating, don't panic. You're going to have a chance to resubmit, but I am a bit of a stickler for when it comes to like the depth of the thinking that you're going to need to do in your reflection journals. All right, well, I'm going to stop recording and